All right, squad, let's review the violence that we just witnessed. Me as the bad guy, I came in and I tried to conceal my intent, but I gave some pre-fight indicators. I bladed my body, my strong hand or my dominant hand turned away, and those are indicators that should put him in a zone where he starts to prepare for some act of violence. And you label that with a color often?
Yeah, you could call that, if you're using Cooper's color codes, you could look at yourself going from yellow to orange, right? And even potentially red. And what that means is I've gone from just general alertness to honing in on a specific threat, and his actions have shown me. And I'm actually, based on those actions, I'm actually moving to red, where I could potentially even get into preemptive actions if I had the time and space to do so.
He then used zero pressure and drove into me. After a couple stabs, the reality is it won't be clean. It will be a little bit messy. It will be volatile. And if somebody's trying to stab you, they're going to be pretty aggressive and persistent. You want to speak to the zero pressure?
Yeah,
principle?
Absolutely. So basically, on that defense, we utilize, and without getting too deep into some of these principles, we're utilizing bisecting lines, large movements, hacking good strong positions, frames of the arm. But it's got to be dynamic, because if I'm not dynamic, he's just going to withdraw that weapon and keep stabbing. So moving in, I'm trying to move to the maximum range of motion, what we call zero pressure. So I'm moving in, and then I'm trying to get to the outside of his arm if possible, because every time I'm on the inside or even center line, that other hand becomes a factor, which we illustrated here. We try and train to go to the preferred positions that will mitigate his ability to perform countermeasures. But in reality, there's balance issues where you're stumbling on the ground, you've got the resistance levels, the strength levels, the training levels of the person that you're dealing with. So you got to be able to adapt using sound principles to the dynamics that will unfold. Oh! That pressure is going to, again, once I've got his arm into its maximum range of motion, I put the pressure on to allow myself to control that and take away his ability to get that arm free. We ended up across the body and pinning it into the wall. And again, even though sometimes when things go right, because that's our ideal position is to be on the outside of that arm, but you're dealing with someone that may be bigger, stronger than yourself, and they're able to reach that arm through and start attacking, countering, getting into your eyes and whatnot. And so again, we're showing the ability to go to where you want to go, but understand it doesn't always work, and you got to be able to follow through with something else, right? And utilize the principles to be able to solve the problem as it unfolds, because again, it's not going to be a 1-2 and done. In an ideal world, it will be, right? But sometimes it can go on, and so you got to be able to stay in the fight and keep following through with your principles. I was armed during that altercation, but there's one of the important Tricom principles we adhere to, which is self-preservation before weapon presentation, right? If he's actively attacking me with that knife and I'm trying to get a gun, I'm going to get stabbed a few times before I even get that gun out, right? And maybe things will still work out, but ideally we want to survive long enough to even get that gun out, which immediately in that what we depicted was, as soon as the opportunity was there that I had some stability of his weapon-bearing limb, I went straight for my weapon. And we even threw in what's likely going to happen. If he's got a gun pointing at him, he's going to grab the gun, he's going to try and survive. And so that's something to anticipate and have some active countermeasures for that, which we depicted here also, shin strip.
Another major principle that you talk about often is fighting to the knife. And we ended up disengaging, and I ended up swinging at him, and then we re-engaged, and he fought to the blade because he couldn't escape because of the close quarters. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, and I mean, ideally, because when we really get into the depth of tactics, right? If he's armed with an edge weapon, distance is your friend, guys. You need to make distance between you and that subject. Distance equals time, equals ability to completely get out of there or find an improvised weapon or something, get your weapon out that you have on your person. But in a close quarter environment, sometimes if you try and recoil from that attack, that ambush, you're putting yourself in a more vulnerable position. So there's times where you got to actually take the fight to that threat, and that's what we were depicting here.
You want to talk about how I grabbed the gun on the shin strip and why you did that?
Yeah, exactly. So we were on that ground position there. He had a hold of the gun, and again, if someone's got a hold of the slide of your weapon, I may be able to get a shot off, but it's difficult if he's actually holding the slide. It's hard for me to orientate the muzzle towards him, which is a tactic. If we were standing and I'm able to pull away and actually counter his zero pressure and get that muzzle pointed towards him, then I may be able to get a round off. The gun's going to go out of battery, so I'm going to have to quickly get it back into battery. But in that position we were in, I wasn't able to do that. So using a shin strip, okay, using the shin and using opposing forces to break his grip, get my gun back out and immediately address the threat, so he's not able to reacquire the gun, and that's what we depicted. Yeah.
So guys, what's the long and short of it when people are watching this on YouTube?
There's a lot of things here. Don't kind of dig into things. I mean, it's a depiction of multiple tactics within the scope of that video. There's a lot of things that you could pick apart and whatnot, and so obviously it's just an attempt to depict multiple things through a simple video. There's things to learn, things we could have added, things that we could take away from that. But hope you guys enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great time. So we'll see you in a few more altercations coming up.